Hey there, what I see is people letting their businesses run their lives versus them leading their business to love their life. I see this in corporate jobs, and I see where we step into expectations that other people have of us that do not honor us and allow us to lead our own life. Welcome to this episode, and I'm glad you're here to listen.
From the corners of my mind is where I find my sanity.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Lead Your Life with Debbie Heiser. I am here today to talk to you about sacrifice. And sometimes sacrifice can be a really scary word for people, but I'm hoping to give you a different perspective about what sacrifice can mean for you. My name is Debbie Heiser. I own and operate Lead Your Life with Debbie Heiser, and I am thrilled to be here today to talk to you about this. I help entrepreneurs make a lot of money doing what they love without sacrificing what's important to them. I find way too many business owners that let the business lead their lives versus them knowing and having clarity about what they really want in their life and having the business be the conduit to make that happen. So I feel a calling and a passion to that. If that interests you, please come out to my website, www.leadyourlituplife.com, and set up a 30-minute free consult. You'll be clearer after that 30 minutes than you were when you walked into it. I can promise you that. So let's go and dig into sacrifice and what this means. So the law of sacrifice is a subsidiary law of the law of cause and effect. And for those of you that didn't listen to the previous Universal Law podcast, the law of cause and effect is simply when you think about for every action, there is a reaction. So nothing happens by chance. Everything we experience in the world is an effect of a cause that was set in motion. And effects become causes in new effects in a train of causation. So as we make one change, it creates a different effect. As we make another change, it creates a different effect. So the effects continue to change. My mentor used to say, you're never at point A and you're never at point B, because when you're at point A and you realize you want to go towards point B, you're heading there. And once you get to point B, the cycle starts all over again. So we are also at first cause, and everything we set in motion returns to us, the causal source as the result. So the law of sacrifice, basically put, and I'm going to give you some examples of how this fits in. The law of sacrifice, it basically says you give up something of a lower nature to receive something of a higher nature. Now, I'm not talking like hierarchical type of lower and higher. What I'm talking about is lower vibration for higher vibration, lower expectations for higher expectations, and not necessarily expectations of the outcomes, but smaller goals lead to larger goals. So we are humans and we grow. We're on a journey. And as we grow, I don't want to equate us to hermit crabs, but I'm going to. So, because it's the best form that I've found. So a hermit crab crawls into their little shell and they continue to grow. They continue to, feed themselves, do all of those things. And for us, it can be an example of feeding yourself through personal growth, through understanding and self-awareness. And so this little hermit crab grows, and as it grows, the shell that it is in is too small. And so the hermit crab does what it does, comes out of the shell and goes in search of a shell that's bigger, that they can spend time in growing into that shell. So part of what happens is that as we level up, we outgrow our shell. We outgrow the container that we're in. And we start to move forward. Now, sometimes as we grow, we realize that there are things in our lives that are not honoring who we are or what we want to be. They're not honoring our beliefs or our values. And we might be shifting. And so it's not a judgment, but maybe that's not serving what we need it to do at the time. So therefore that shell isn't serving the hermit crab anymore. So he hops out or she hops out and goes to another one. So looking at that, this can be numerous different things. And sacrifice is a word that sometimes comes with some connotation and some meaning that can be negative. When you think about the law of sacrifice as well, it might be that you are working today with a group of customers or clients, and you have a particular client that you know you have helped as much as you can. You have served them to the point of where you can serve them. And therefore you let go of that client, and that allows the opportunity then to take on another client that may be at a different level. Another example of the law of sacrifice is where I am potentially, well, sometimes it is relationships, and sometimes it's friendships, sometimes, and that's where the icky feelings can sometimes come, but sometimes it's just the fact of, I'm on a health journey right now. I have a very strong feeling that if you're physically healthy, you are then able to go out and make the impact in the world that you want to make. You're able to go out and do that which you want to do. You are able as an entrepreneur to provide a product or service to someone to help them have more life. So in order for me to have more life, I need to be physically healthy. And so part of that law of sacrifice is looking at, and I find sometimes over the summer, I tend to drink a little bit more alcoholic beverages than what my body responds well to. And so I made the conscious decision, and I thought, you know what, there's a lot of times that I don't need to even have an alcoholic beverage. I could have tea or water. And so I've just been mindful about that. The other night I went out to dinner with 3 friends, and I saw that this restaurant had champagne, which any of you that have listened before, I've become kind of a champagne snob, meaning that champagne you can only get from the Champagne region of France. And so in this case, they had French champagne. And I thought, wow, I want to have a glass of that so that I can really enjoy it and savor it. And so the law of sacrifice means that I let go of putting the alcohol into my body because it doesn't make my body feel well. But it also meant that there are times that I'm going to enjoy that. Now, the law of sacrifice also means, like when I think about my environment, and I felt really cluttered lately, and a lot of times your external environment is a reflection of what's happening internally. I have gotten really clear recently, over the last year or two, about what I want in my business. I've gotten clear about what I want in relationship with friends, with a love relationship, with family. I've gotten really clear about what I want from a spiritual perspective, all of these areas that I work with my clients on. And so coming to clarity then about my environment, I'm looking at some of these things. And I'm going to spend a little time here on the environment piece of it, because I don't think, well, what I've found is a lot of people don't think about their environment impacting them. And so as I look at my environment, I have probably 400 books in a bookshelf. I've read some of them I have not. And some of them are kids' books that I'm going to keep for my grandkids, but it takes up space. And I'm wanting to eliminate having so many things clutter my space. So the law of sacrifice says I'm going to let go of the lesser. So I'm going to let go of these things that are just sitting there gathering dust. Same thing goes with clothing. Looking at, and how many of you have, some people I know are really good at getting rid of things that they don't use, but how many of you have things around your house or in your closet or in your drawers that you have not used in 2 years? Now, sometimes there's the special bag or the special belt or, the special dress that you wear to an event or something. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about kind of the things that you purchase to wear every day. And so when you look at that and then think about what are the things that you have worn in the last 6 months, or if you're in seasons, the last year or two, get rid of the things that you are not, because there's a vibrational energy about having those things. And then when you give them away to someone that will use them, then those items are being used for what they were meant to be used for. And it also lowers the footprint of what's happening, and we're not throwing all of this stuff away, right? So repurposing. So also looking at the law of sacrifice when it comes to food, when it comes to things in your home, when it comes to thoughts and patterns. You know, I talk a lot about double binds and loyalty pacts. So there are thoughts that we have, and words are so important. And I'm not perfect at it in any way, shape, or form. However, words can beat us up. Words can inspire. Words can create happiness. And so when you think about the law of sacrifice, sometimes we have to let go of a story that we have held on to for a long time about ourselves that have become almost like a part of our identity. And the law of sacrifice says basically let go of that. Let go of those limiting beliefs. Let go of those things. Become aware. You know, and frankly, I have a business coach, so have a third party help you, because sometimes we're so close to our stuff that we don't see it. So identify those things that are holding you back, those thoughts and those beliefs about things that you can let go of and move into more life. So when I think about it, I think about a belief that potentially I had for many years. I had a belief that I needed to have a corporate job. And that corporate job that I had, the jobs that I had, both at Sprint and at Citibank and at Turning Point, my last one, treated me very well, right? I was compensated well. I had good benefits through them. I was able to save for retirement. I mean, there were a lot of really good things about that, but I outgrew that. My purpose was bigger. And so therefore, letting go and stepping into a business full time, even though sometimes it's scary. So the law of sacrifice, sometimes it feels easy and it just happens and you walk into it. Other times it's a little scary to let go of that. So I had this belief that I needed to have a job. Well, I have a job and I love it, so it doesn't even feel like a job. And I know sometimes people are like, you know, vomit. I don't want to hear that, but there is some truth to that. If you're doing what you love, it's exciting and it helps you lead a lit up life. So part of this sacrifice that occurred was letting go of this pattern or this thought that I needed to have a job and work Monday through Friday and live for the weekends. It was just a message that I'd received. No judgment on that. If you live in that life, no judgment at all. But for me, I realized that's not what I wanted. So as an entrepreneur, I'm not going to lie to you. There's not typically too many days that I don't do some type of work. Now, on a Saturday or Sunday, it may be an hour's worth of things. It might be Sunday. I'm sitting down and planning my entire week. You know, and I'm thinking about my business quite frequently, but I did that when I was in corporate. So when you think about letting go of the message that I had to have this security, this other thing providing for me, I had to let go of that and realize I could step into this and financially be able to support myself. Now, another story that I had that falls into the law of sacrifice, and I've talked about this before, is this work story, you know, where I thought I needed to work 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. Well, I'm really excited because when you listen to this, it will be in November, or maybe October. I don't really remember, to be honest with you, but it's getting really close to ski season for me. So when I think about a work schedule, I don't have to be here 8 to 5. So I'll be skiing on a Monday morning and come in at 1 o'clock. I'll be skiing on a Thursday and a Friday in the morning and then coming in the afternoon and evening. And I don't have to go into that limited piece of saying I have to work 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. Now there are certain days, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, that I see clients that I'll have more of a 8 to 5 type of schedule. So I hope you're understanding that this law of sacrifice isn't always difficult. It's not always a negative thought, or not even negative thought, but it's not always just a thinking of the negative things that you need to let go of. Sometimes it's, oh, this was working pretty well for me, but this would even be better if I went this way. So when you think about the law of sacrifice, it's not just things, it's not just people, it's also looking at those thoughts, those stories that we're tied to. I can't tell you how many times I see people, like I saw a post the other day, someone had a coffee mug that said the Hot Mess Express. And, or when people say, I'm a hot mess, that's a story that we're tied to, that the law of sacrifice needs to come into play. Because when we have these stories about ourselves, and believe you me, I've said certain things about myself before. And so when we have these stories about ourselves, we continue to affirm that in our subconscious brain. When we start to let go of the thought that in this example that we're a hot mess, and I realize that I do have my things organized. I am put together. I do have things that I need to work on, but it doesn't make me a hot mess. It's a different message that goes in your brain. And so letting go of that is the law of sacrifice. Moving into more life is only allowed when you let go and make space for that. So I also say to people, and here's a big one that happens a lot with people, when you say yes to something that's not 100% yes for you, that closes you off from the 100% yes. So if I'm saying yes to something that maybe I'm doing it, but I'm not really in it, or I say, yeah, I'll do that task, or I'll be in charge of this event, or I'll do this thing, and I don't really want to, first of all, that builds resentment. But secondly, if it doesn't go towards what you're wanting to do, and there's also contributions to society that I work with clients, and so looking at that and saying, if this isn't getting me closer to my goal or closer to the more life or to who I'm meant to be able to then go out and impact other people to have more life, then why am I doing it? Now, sometimes there's a reason, but a lot of times we have to unwind what that reason is. And what I've found is most of the time I unwind the reason and I realize, oh, it's just because it's comfortable. And so letting go of that and not saying yes to things you don't want to do. And so when you can say, no, that doesn't work for me. You can also say, no, that doesn't work for me right now if you have a desire to do it later. But then that allows you the opportunity to be open to those things coming into your life. So again, thinking about the law of sacrifice, not just in things, but in thought patterns, in saying yes or no to things, giving yourself the freedom to say no to things that you don't really want to do. So anywhere that you start to feel guilt or shame, and therefore you're saying yes to, that's a loyalty pact or a double bind that's holding you back. And so just be aware of that. So the law of sacrifice is a big one. It impacts multiple areas of your life. And I would one of the suggestions I would invite you into is to make a list of the things in your life right now that are not bringing you joy. And determine, is this an area where I'm being called to step into my growth edge? I'm being called to step into more life. And so then what do I do with this? How do I let go and release those things that are potentially pulling me versus those things that are lifting me up? So I don't usually assign homework on a podcast, but I'd say do some homework on this and do some journaling with that. And with that, folks, this is a wrap. Thank you so much for listening into the law of sacrifice. We'll continue this journey through some of the universal laws pretty close to the end of the year. And if you have any questions about them, don't hesitate to reach out and set up a call with me. With that, it's a wrap. And if you could do us a favor, go out and give us a rating on iTunes and write us a little comment. I'd greatly appreciate it. Have a fantastic day, and we'll talk again soon.